Hey everybody, it is Matt Aguito here tonight for a special civil conversations. Tonight I am super excited about this conversation, primarily because it is heavily focused on interracial marriage. I think the main thing for tonight, and we'll give a few seconds for people to join on, that I would like for us to make sure we focus on is understanding people as individuals and the work it takes to bring those individuals together to basically start a life together and have a family, or bring two families together and continue life together. And so tonight I have a couple of very special guests, friends, people we've known for a couple years, all the way up to 13 years. So I am super excited. So if you guys give me 1 second, I'm going to pull up, as everyone knows that's watching me, I typically try to pull up the live stream so I can make sure I'm watching any comments. Feel free to comment for those that are watching the show. Feel free to ask any questions. Later on towards the end of the program, maybe around 7:45-ish, we'll start taking some questions. So for tonight, we have Mike and Debbie Allen, and we have Spencer and Karen Foster. So I would like for you guys to take a moment to introduce yourselves first individually, and then we'll go into the conversation for tonight. So I would like to start with you, Debbie. Could you give us an intro of who you are?
Sure. Hi, I'm Debbie Adam. I was born and raised on the island of Jamaica. I moved to the U.S. For college years ago, settled in Florida for a few years. I am an only child. I was raised by my grandparents. I was raised multilingual, so I speak multiple languages, which also is the reason that you don't hear the strong Jamaican accent everyone's used to. I'm married for 14 years. I've got 2 children, and I reside in Charlotte.
Awesome. All right, Karen.
Yes. I was born and raised in Virginia. At 19, I moved to Massachusetts. I lived there for 10 years. I'm one of 6 kids total. Mom had 4, dad had 1. Then they had me. I moved to Charlotte 15 years ago. And I have, had 2 daughters. I was a single mom for a long time. And I currently am self-employed.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. Mike?
Hey everybody, Mike Adam. I've been in Charlotte now for, are we here 13 years now? Prior to that, we were in South Florida together, and I moved there for college, so I'm working my way backwards. My parents are in Jacksonville, Florida, which we moved there when I was about 12, and prior to that, living in a suburb of Chicago, so Hazel Crest, Chicago. I have 3 siblings, and we have 2 kids, and just looking forward to the next part of this conversation.
Of course, do that so we can get into it and dig in. And Spencer.
Hi, I'm Spencer Foster. I'm the oldest of 4 boys. I'm a military brat. I was born in Spain. I've lived dozens of places. I have 2 daughters before getting married. Have had over 100 jobs. Just a little note. I'm a master of nothing and a jack of all trades. So there you go.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. I appreciate you guys going into that. So part of the reason why I wanted to do this conversation, and I thank you guys for your description or intro, is because a lot of the race and social justice tension that's going on in the U.S. is pretty heavy right now, and I feel like it's been going on forever. At least all my life. And I think there's a perspective around interracial marriages that I really wanted to get into. Speaking for myself, I never really viewed myself as somebody who was, I'm married obviously, and I never viewed myself as someone who's like interracial, but I definitely knew that my wife and I brought together 2 cultures. And I think that's critical. So if you see us, we're 2 Black people, but with me being Nigerian, that definitely came with some pieces of the culture that I brought into the household. Either it was just me or if it was Nigerian. I don't know what it was, but we had to figure it out. But in the U.S., the funny thing about it is there were laws that existed 53 years ago, up to 53 years ago, that basically said that these two couples could not be married. And I think it's beautiful that we're able to have this conversation tonight and allow us to be able to get insight into how are they doing. As you all heard from Debbie, she's Jamaican, and she came in not just only as a Black woman, but a Jamaican Black woman and an immigrant on a student visa, and she met Mike. And you have Karen, go Patriots, and coming together with Spencer, and they're a blended family, and that has its weight as well. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to start with the Adam family. If you guys don't mind, can y'all tell us a little bit of how you guys met?
Sure.
Sure. We actually were co-workers. We worked at one of the local newspapers in South Florida on the marketing team. He's a designer. I'm in marketing. So we teamed up a lot on projects, and I think we met back in 2000.
2000. Our desks were maybe one desk between us. And I think we did a birthday routine, and her birthday is before mine. So you plan the next person's party. So she actually had to plan my birthday party that first year.
Yeah, that's how we kind of became friends.
Oh wow! Did you draw her anything? I mean, you were a designer.
No, the other way. She did my birthday party.
Yeah,
I didn't have to do hers. I got out of that.
My birthday's October, and his is November, about 10 days apart. So I got to plan his birthday.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. So my first year on the job, she actually somehow convinced my mom to send baby pictures for my birthday, and we had just met.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. When did you start developing interest? Like, who was first?
I don't know if you would call me first. Would you say me first?
Yeah, because I had no clue. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, we were friends for a few years because we were working close together. So we were friends for a few years before we started spending time outside of the office together. So it's probably 2 or 3 years. And then we started hanging out as friends with other groups. And at some point in time, I realized I was, best description was getting jealous of other people spending time with her. It's like, oh, I feel that way. So.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was clueless, but very excited to hang out with her.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a sign of like, hey, you really like her. It's like, where are you going? That's awesome. So to slide over to the Foster family, how did you guys meet?
So we actually met online. We met on Plenty of Fish.
Don't do.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to plug it.
For those watching, don't do that.
Yeah. But we met on Plenty of Fish. It was one of those love at first message type deal. Like we dated for 3 months.
Uh-huh.
We dated for 3 months and then got married, and it was one of those things where we knew that this was the direction that we wanted to go into, and God had put us together, and so we did this thing, and we're here. we're here. It was awesome. It's been a test, and so here we are in love.
Is that the truth of the story?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
That's the short version.
Yeah, actually, I messaged him. I saw his profile and sent him a message, and the shorter version is he was actually on his phone deleting his profile.
Oh yeah.
When my message popped up. And then he's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, let me look at this a little more.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I was on there for 30 days and had enough. And as I was deleting it, her message came up and said that she wanted to go out.
Oh, that's not what I said.
She said,
it was meant to be.
And so after I answered her, it was about a week later, and I said we should go out on a date because I don't want to be catfished, because I felt like it was too good to be true. And we went out on a date, and ever since then it's been her all day long.
Nice. I like that. So when you guys got together, and this is a toss-up, right? So whichever family wants to answer this question first, whichever couple, when you got together, and as your relationship got started, what were the initial challenges, right? I mean, it's, obviously you like each other, so I don't think there's a challenge in regards to knowing that you like each other, but were there any initial challenges in regards to the cultural differences that you may have? As when it came to this, obviously we could bring race into this, but just in general, like, were there any challenges? Who wants to answer that one first? This is initial. When you guys started.
Well, I would say initially for us, because my relationships weren't as serious as this one was, to start off with, and with the fact that we both have children, or I had children, and didn't want to bring them into a bad relationship as far as drag them through it because they were older. And I was in the middle of a custody battle at the time that I met Karen. So it was a struggle to really just be honest and open and tell her about what I was going through with Rachel, and she got involved in it and was really supportive throughout that. And so being in the system, I mean, that's even part of it, being in the system as a Black man, trying to get an interracial daughter in the South and getting sole custody. It was a lot. And I know it was a lot for her during that part. Mm-hmm. And then there were some other racial issues in my family that was a problem. I guess we can go into that further, but there's some members of my family that weren't really keen on mixed marriages and being in a mixed relationship, and then how serious it was became a problem.
How did you respond to that, Karen? Well, first off, the challenges from your perspective, right? Because I want to also balance that out. But then also, how did you respond to that? For yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's really any challenges for me. Like when I started telling my family, hey, I think I met this guy. I think, this could be something serious. I mean, they automatically were like, is he Black? Like, was it, I think they'd been more shocked if I was like, no, he's not. But,
she's not lying. When I met her family, they were like, we knew you were Black.
Well, and if you could touch that for a second, your kids, if you don't mind going into that, Karen, the children you brought into the
both their fathers are Black, and like with his daughters, their moms are white. So it's not like this was a new thing for our families when we met. Right?
Is it safe to say once you go Black?
No,
it's not.
Yes, it is.
No. I had my first daughter, and then actually before him, my longest relationship was with the white guy. So.
Got you. Cool. So, I had to do it. I was like, I saw the opportunity, and I had to do it.
You venture back, but you come back again. So.
There you go. So I want to slide over to the Adam family real quick. So what about you all when it came to challenges? Anything specific?
So I would say, in contrast to your quick courting, we dated for about 3 years. We had previous relationships, and I think, coming out of a previous relationship, wanting to make sure that this was going to be the one and not a rebound.
Right.
Typical relationship struggles. But, coming from Jamaica, our motto is out of many, one people.
Right.
I grew up with every single ethnicity across the board in my elementary school, in my high school. I never grew up identifying myself as anything other than Jamaican, and neither did my friends. Mm-hmm. You could be Asian, Indian, white, Jewish, mm-hmm. Anything. So we had more of a national identity, not a racialized mm-hmm. identity. So coming here for college, my first semester was about the first time. I think the first time it hit me in the face was when I was kind of interested in sororities, and I was going through college, and they were like, hey, are you going to sign up for, I think, the Zetas? I'm like, well, I was going to look at every sorority, and they're like, well, that's the Black sorority on campus. And I thought, wow, I mean, everyone puts everyone in a box here. And so over time, I mean, I've been here in the US about 2/3 of my life now. I've had to learn all of the nuances of what being Black in America was all about. I didn't have the experience of Jim Crow, neither did my parents or grandparents. So it's been a slow realization that even though I look, just like an African American, because I was raised in another country, I come with different pre-programmed ideals of who I am and
Right.
how I approach the world. But as far as family, my family that I know have never been, I've got family of all different ethnicities, so it's never been an issue. I remember being a little apprehensive the first time I dated outside of my race, but both relationships that I've had, I've never witnessed any kind of issue or struggle. So I guess in that case, we were really lucky.
So let me ask this question. This is to the Adam group. So I want you to kind of give me a response too, Mike, because I'm curious. I don't know if this is if anybody else is thinking this that's watching, or and the Fosters, you guys have, just so you guys know, ask each other questions if y'all want.
Yes.
Did you see a Black woman, Mike?
Yes, I mean, I'm not, there's a whole scenario of colorblind that I don't think I wouldn't say I didn't see a Black woman, but it wasn't a deterrent in any way, shape, or form. We were talking about it the other night, and just I've always enjoyed like learning new cultures and getting to go different places and meeting her family, meeting different people. That I don't really think that's a new thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was weird. I still can remember a couple of conversations, like side conversations with friends, that made it come to the forefront, but I don't think in any of my thinking was it a concern or a flag.
It's wild because, like, due to the fact that we see color, meaning the United States, no matter what anyone says, even when you say you don't see color, you're saying that in response to seeing color.
Right.
You two specifically had to adopt, and I know, Debbie, you had to do this. You had to adopt an American culture that put an identity on you didn't ask for. Like, you came here for an education.
Yeah.
And immediately, you immediately got put right into a box, like you said earlier, as a Black woman, which you are a Black woman. That doesn't change anything.
Absolutely.
But you are also whole Jamaican, right?
Right.
I identify as Caribbean.
Exactly. There you go. And so for you, Mike, when you, the way you just described that, I thought was awesome. Was as you got to know Debbie as a person, and then of course identifying as a Jamaican, right? Like, that's who she is. She's from Jamaica, Caribbean. Did the American way of looking at race start seeping in? Like, you kind of said that already. People brought that to the forefront. But did that stop you guys from learning about each other at all, or not stop, but just, was it challenging at all?
So let's make sure, at the beginning, I don't think at all. I can't think of it coming up much in any way, shape, or form at all. And maybe it's also that time period in the world where it was calmer. I think as things happen, we have more conversations about it in the world. So like some more conversations happen and topics came up because current events or something, versus at that time her and I, if that makes sense.
I will say that living in South Florida, which is a giant melting pot, also had a lot to do with the fact that we didn't initially run into any of those issues. Moving to the Carolinas, though, I mean, after I had my firstborn, when he was a baby, he was very much his father's skin tone. So whenever I take him out, I get that unfortunate babysitter question or nanny question. And so little things like that were, I don't think our dating life, we had any kind of issues, but once we started having kids, we started getting some rude, inquisitive, and, somewhat off-putting comments. I mean, nothing too vile, but still, I mean, we had to deal with stuff.
It wasn't overt, but it was basically microaggressions.
Oh, it was overt. It was just not bordering on vile, which is good.
Okay, got you. But it's definitely microaggressions from that perspective, right? Just little comments. Okay.
Yeah, we've definitely experienced the aggressions too. Like when we go to Barris Hammond concerts,
that's my favorite.
I love some Barris Hammond.
Well, it was amazing because, just to add to that, or just touch on that, we actually was blessed from a friend who let us get front stage at the Barris Hammond concert. We got to go in through the stage door.
Wow.
We go in, we go past the lights, and when we're standing up front, I see my wife standing there dancing, and it's a yogurt covered raisin and a sea of
and
black people.
And I'm the Barris fan.
And I'm not.
He met Barris because I love Barris. You know what I mean? So you kind of
so cool.
We're there for like the opposite. Like, oh, he's bringing his girl along. It's like, no, I'm dragging him.
And then, but what was really funny was you could see some of this disdain on some of the people's faces. And I asked her even there, I was like, do you see this? Like, do you feel this? Do you understand how this is going on? And she was like, no, I'm here to see Barris. I'm not here to see them. And I was really proud of her for that. And it's just a crazy thing with what you were saying. Like, we can't go to a concert sometimes and just enjoy the music that everybody else enjoys. Like, it's not even about color. We're here to hear music, and the people have an issue with who I'm married to and who she's married to. That's great.
Was it almost like a, well, you kind of said, why is she here, right, kind of thing, or and did you feel like
we were asked that? Did you
feel like you had to? Well, I guess when you checked in on her, you kind of felt like you had to protect her, basically.
Well, I always feel like that because I'm her husband, but it was a matter of you don't even know who she is to be upset that she's here to hear Barris Hammond. Like, this is my wife. I'm not seeing a white woman. I'm seeing my wife. You're seeing a white woman who's enjoying the same music that you do. Like, what is that? How is this a problem? Like, how is this turned into a racial issue at a concert where we're all supposed to have a good time?
I will say that if you were in Jamaica, no one would have batted an eye, because there are white Jamaicans, there are black Jamaicans. They invariably get married. It's a thing. But I do know that since coming here, I've seen people have like an unhealthy obsession with other people's relationships that don't fit in the box that is the default for all relationships.
Right.
So if something deviates even slightly, whether it's cultures or, it just causes an unhealthy obsession. So for us, I mean, I feel that, it's been 14 years. We've been dating for longer than that. I don't think that we are impervious to it, but it doesn't penetrate. We kind of see it for what it is. There's a lot of people with a lot of baggage, and, this country is notorious for perpetuating the baggage. We just choose not to engage with the baggage.
I like how you said unhealthy. How did you? Basically, unhealthy relationship with relationships, or unhealthy
obsession with relationships that don't fit in their default.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I find that amazing. I think when I was doing a lot of this research on the history of the U.S. when it comes to interracial marriages, one of the things that comes up, like if I close my eyes, right, and I like on one of my calls, I said, if I close my eyes and I picture a wealthy individual, old wealthy individual, close my eyes, most of us are going to visualize a white guy, right?
Right.
Not believe that.
Right, but then when we visualize an interracial relationship, we close our eyes, we visualize black and white.
Right.
And the country is way more diverse than that. I mean, I have friends that are white and Asians are married, Hispanic and black, Hispanic. I mean, the list goes on and on because of the way this nation is. But I find it interesting from your perspective as you came here from Jamaica and you're like, come on, guys, like, can we just be married and move on? Like, this is not.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it, it's one thing to be free or liberated in your mind, but there's just still so much out there in the systems and the media. So you're still fighting that outside battle, even though inside you're liberated. I mean, we have an intentionally diverse circle of friends, and my kids also have a diverse circle of friends, and it's not just ethnicity, it's walks of life, religion, I mean, you name it, every diverse dimension, because I feel like it's important to arm my kids with the truth and all of the things that will come against them. They'll be able to kind of refute it with facts, because there's just been too much out there that's been, coming against just unions. I mean, we're two souls who love each other. What else is there to know?
Yeah,
right.
I think the when you, this is just a thought that came to my mind as you were talking, like maybe because we're so young in just removing the barriers, right? So you think about a lot of nations, you just exist, right? And you just kind of, people just, and I don't know, I'm speaking out of probably ignorance here, but you just exist. You guys just get married, people get together, blah, 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 blah. In the US, 53 years ago, 14 years older than me, within 10 years older than you guys, the law got put in place to abolish the ban of this.
Right.
That's very new. So
Yeah.
And to add to that, South Carolina only made that legal in 2000. Think
Yep.
about that. Sorry, Alabama.
Wow.
South Carolina was a little bit before Alabama, but Alabama only upheld that law in the year 2000. So I was in college while it was still not legal, and I had friends who couldn't go to prom together as multi-ethnic people because their university wouldn't allow it while I was in college.
So is the obsession awkwardly warranted? Like, meaning, I'm not making an excuse for it by any means, but I mean, what you just said is pretty groundbreaking, right? You're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that you, like you just said, because America is one of the youngest countries on the face of the planet. So a lot of the stuff that other countries have already overcame with the idea of different skin color being involved in dating, America is just now getting up to the point of where they understand that shouldn't be even thought of. Like, that shouldn't be part of the conversation of what color each person is versus their character. Yeah. I mean, and that's it. I mean, just like you just said, for us to be in the year 2000, for this whole country with everything that's going on. I mean, the internet has been around longer than we can be segregated. I mean, desegregated in America. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy. Like,
yeah. So, I'm sorry, Debbie, were you about to say something?
I was going to say, and I will say that there's some things that are definitely endemic to the USA. It's a very individualistic country.
Yes.
I've traveled to lots of different countries where they're all about the collective,
right.
for the greater good, for the good of the community. But with the US, it's me, my rights. I'm a self-made person. It's, it's all about the individual. So I can definitely see where there would be challenges here, because there's not like, let me think about the greater good. There's I'm doing it my way. It's just a totally different thing. And for us, I mean, I know that I'm particularly intentional about taking my kids to other countries. There's people who never want to do that because this to them is the pinnacle of everything good and
successful. There is, right.
But for me, it's like, this is just one singular story, and there is a power in hearing all the stories. And I would never want to deprive my children of hearing all the stories and then choosing which story they want to ally themselves to.
I love that. I love that. I think, part of why I'm even doing civil conversations. I mean, I feel like my head's cut off. Hold on, here we go. Part of even why I'm doing civil conversations, it was sparked obviously from an African American standpoint. Let's be real for a second. It's a problem, right? Being, I'm going to say this hundreds of times, probably going on for years, being a Nigerian kid, I also know we have just an overall ignorance to international and nationalities and cultures and things like that are just bigger than just black and white. What you're saying about educating the kids, and this is a good bridge to this next point where I want to go into with children, educating kids and exposing them is huge, because it allows us to view this world a whole lot bigger and more, and in some cases more complex, right? And more to respect and more to honor, when you become more educated, then it's just a black and white thing. All right. So that's huge. So when it comes to kids, I don't know. I'm looking at Mike. I don't know. I guess his face looked like he was just perking up for that. Mike, or Adam, Mike or Debbie, if you guys want to speak to this first, and we'll go over to the Fosters. How have your kids been? And how are you guys prepping your kids? And your kids are younger than the Foster's children, I believe. So, what are you, if you don't mind, the kids' ages?
Sure, 13 and 9.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's about the same.
13 and 9. So go ahead. How's it been the kids?
It's been, well, in a lot of ways it's been good. And I'll say the more opportunities that we've had to educate them about color. I think when my daughter was in summer camp a few years ago, she came home and the told us that the kid counselor said, "I met your parents. You're adopted."
Oh, I met your dad.
I met your dad. You're adopted.
Oh.
So we actually were lucky enough to know some people to help us articulate what melanin is to her, and we went through a whole chocolate syrup milk experience to kind of show how it works.
And just to give it a little context, my son has closer to my husband's skin tone. My daughter has closer to my skin tone.
Yeah.
So whenever she goes out with Mike, and even when she was an infant and he'd take her out to restaurants, they'd ask him where he adopted his, you know, these beautiful kids. But, you know, she came home at 4 years old. She was that little. I didn't think I'd have to have the talk about, you know, skin tone with her at that young age. But, you know, a teenage counselor at her summer camp pretty much told her she was adopted. So we kind of filled these little shot glasses with milk, and we got some Hershey syrup, and we talked about how
I didn't get much Hershey syrup.
Yeah, Daddy only got enough for his freckles. But when she got down to herself, she was like, "Oh, I got more Hershey syrup." You know, so we kind of talked about melanin and how that works, and how ancestral history works, and how, you know, all of that. So she was really able, even at a very, you know, this is pre-kindergarten.
She corrected the counselor.
She corrected the counselor. She goes, "I have more melanin than my brother. I'm not."
Oh, wow. So what I just gathered from this little portion here, and we'll, I want to continue on the kids and then move to the foster in a second. But what I love about what you guys just said is you took, this is layers in what I'm seeing. You guys took a potential traumatic moment and made it a teaching moment for your kids, and then empowered that child to go re-educate the people who try to put her in a box.
And I don't think we're going to get to another place without that. So
and I think that's critical, because there are so many traumatic things that happen that are small. There's large ones, but they're small that impact our identity at such a young age. Imagine the man that you love for the last 4 years of your life, someone's telling them that he's your adopted dad. Like, just the concept of that is mind-blowing, but you guys caught that and flipped it so beautifully as parents who are trying to elevate this higher and say, like, look, this is how you're made. This is what you're made of. And using chocolate milk is, you said chocolate milk and regular milk? Is that, did you say?
Yeah, regular milk and chocolate syrup, because her love language is chocolate.
I think that's like beautiful. I'm sorry, Spencer, were you about to say something?
Oh, no. I was saying that's nice as well.
That was a good idea.
That was a great idea.
That's a really great idea. So slide into the fosters. What about you guys? I mean, Karen, I've known you pretty long. I mean, like, I know you got some stories. How's it been with the girls?
It's been interesting. I mean, so our kids are, so my daughters are now 14 and 21. His are 13 and 20. The 13, 14, like you mentioned, custody. So his daughter does live with us. So we are mom and dad for her. With my 14-year-old, like, her dad left when she was 5 months old. So he was never in the picture for her life. And, you know, with everything that's been going on recently, you know, we've been having, you know, we sit at our dinner table basically every night and we have conversations. And, you know, one night it was about race and just identity and how people see you and this type of thing. And she got a little emotional and she just said that, you know, well, until you married Daddy, I never really even thought about that I was Black. Because, you know, her only parent, you know, and I think that says a lot, you know, if there's single parents watching, you know, like, as far as your kid's identity, you know, I'm the only parent she knew. So it's like, well, my mom's white, I'm white. You know, she didn't have anything to kind of put into reference with that part of her culture, even though she knew it, she didn't think about it. And they do attend a school that's primarily white. So we've had a lot of conversations because they've experienced some things that are said that from students there, some racist comments that have been made that, you know, the other kids laugh at and don't think much about, but our daughters are like, you know, we're getting text messages like, hey, this was just said, that's not cool. So, you know, we've had to deal with that.
We've had to deal with the conversation of, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot you were Black. With one of the girls, we had
microaggressions.
Well, and Olivia,
we actually had to go to the school for it. Like, and basically it was turned off.
Yeah, well, and this was like 2 years ago, so maybe 6th grade, middle school. Our daughter told us that, at the lunch table, the girls were talking about, if you were black, what would your name be? And she looked at them and said, Olivia, because that's my name.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about the micro stuff where people don't realize, look, Matt's like mind blown right now, but
that's
seriously.
so frustrating. Like, that is so, like, if that was my kid, like, sorry, y'all, I'm kind of like breaking my cool because I'm supposed to be very.
See, like, I think I'm raising like a tiny Angela Davis because
Awesome.
had the playground microaggressions where little kids have, I believe there was a little girl who's an immigrant from the Republic of Congo. She's here, beautiful complexion, similar to Lupita, the actress. And the kids were like, oh my gosh, your skin looks like, and I won't even go with the pejorative that they use. And Jessica was like, did your mom not teach you about melanin? She has the best amount of chocolate milk in her complexion. And literally an adult told me that my daughter stood up for this girl and schooled those little kids. And it says a lot because honestly, I feel like you have to give your kids language to combat those racist comments. It's by osmosis that they pick it up. And also there've been like decades and maybe a century of ick in the media in terms of how, Black people are portrayed, caricatured, racialized. I mean, we don't even have to look far in history to see, the things that are compared to. So for us, like, I feel like one kid is more along the Martin Luther King side. The other one, she is super radical. She will call you on your microaggression to your face. And she's done that with adults too. Like, you can't say that. That's not cool. And so
that's awesome. I think it's important. It sounds like you guys all do this proactively and reactively, educating and reinforcing the kids and waiting for moment, like you said earlier, Karen, when in regards to the realization of being a single white mom. It's amazing to think about. That's something that I've always been curious about when it comes to not necessarily being a single white mom, but the impact of culture on color, right? You have those people who are, African American or Black, and then they sound like Carlton Banks or whoever, and they're like, oh, you sound white.
That is the biggest microaggression I faced.
I
mean,
me as
I've
well.
had phone interviews and shown up in person, and they're like, are you Debbie? Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's it. And I think part of that is, when I think about the culture, some people just, they are who they are. That's it. And it's amazing how much we see color, assume a type, and then act out on that assumption. It's so crazy. It's so crazy how quick we're able to do that. I'm sorry, Spencer, go ahead.
Well, so I used to work, I won't say the place, but I worked for this place, and I actually, in 3 years ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago, actually, somebody came up to me in this place and said that they would rather speak to a white person than a Black person. Where I worked, and I was the manager of the place, and I was the only one that could help them. And what's funny about that, like you were just saying about the aggression, is that after it happened, the people that I worked with asked me if I needed a counselor or needed someone to speak with. And what was funny is I told them no, because this wasn't the first time that this had happened. And that's kind of a crazy thing, that for them, it was so atrocious that they felt like I needed a counselor for it. And maybe I did, but I've lived with this my whole life. So for me, it was just Tuesday.
Right.
Wow.
Just to ask Spencer, did the person who asked get help, or was he escorted out? I just want to know now.
Actually, they were denied help because I was the manager, and I told them if they needed a white person, I'm sorry, I'm not white. I can't change my color. They're going to have to go someplace else. So that's how it went down, and I got the support of my management team from there. But that's how it went down, and I have the same issue that Debbie's had. That I've been to job interviews, and because I don't sound Black, that they're looking for white Spencer or white Keith, and I've sat in a waiting room for 2 hours for a job at one place before because the woman did not know that I was the person that was the applicant there.
That's
And I
wild.
will just,
Debbie, what do you
I
say?
will just add to your comment. There's no sounding black, sounding white.
We
You
say
sound like Spencer.
yes.
You sound like Debbie. I mean,
We-
for everybody who has these false narratives, shame on them.
Well,
We are who we are, and we're individuals.
Well, like the thing is, it's one of those things where, like, and so it's funny you doubled down on that, Debbie, because Bill Griswold made a comment. Not to jump the comment so quickly, but he said, "Tell me more about the phrase 'you sound white' and why basically being a microaggression." Part of it, Bill, is imagine being a race or imagine being an individual, and then people assume they try to take that away from you by the way you sound. Like,
Right.
it's ridiculous, right? And
You don't
so,
have to suggest white is better.
Yeah.
and also by saying
Default,
white,
right.
exactly, by and then elevating a race by saying white is better. At the end of the day, if you just speak proper English, you just
English,
speak
right.
proper English. That's about it.
Yeah,
Not
and
everybody's going to sound like Morgan Freeman or the guy from the Allstate commercials. Like, it's
I
just
Right.
it's what it
I
is.
was going
Like,
to say to the person's question, why is it a microaggression? It's because of your assumption of my intelligence or my
right.
diction, my elocution has anything to do with the fact that I'm not the default.
Right.
I'm not the default. And unfortunately, we have a default and everything else is hyphenated.
Right.
Coming to this place, I'm African American, but Mike's American. My friends who are Asian American, but Karen's American.
Right.
So like everything else is filtered through the default lens, and then everyone else is given a hyphen. So
Right.
it kind of gives you that sense of not belonging. Because
I
again,
like
like I told you, I grew up Jamaican. Nothing else. I'm Jamaican, just like anyone else. But coming here, I had to get a hyphen.
Wow. You
Good.
came here and you got a hyphen. Thank you for saying that. That's huge. That makes me almost want to cover that in another conversation. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, were you about to say something?
Oh, and on a different topic, but I'll come back to that one. I will add though to the comment. I think there's something to be said of if you're going to ask that out loud. I guess I guess going through my development as a white person that's like learning more and more every day about this topic. There's a lot of things that I say in my head that's a 2-second rule that never comes out of my mouth, and I want to get better at the 2-second rule, what's in my head, but it's not really a question that needs to be put out there. So like learn from that if you say it and you upset the person, but those are things that are in that 2-second rule things, like you didn't really need to ask. Like I had somebody ask me the other day, it said my daughter is beautiful and asked if my son is black too. And I'm like, I'm not sure how to answer that question. No?
Yeah.
Wow.
And just talking about microaggressions at work, like my husband, if you meet him at work, you don't know we're connected, and you hear his passion about diversity and inclusion, you'll probably wonder why this guy is all riled up about, inclusive hiring practices and stuff. Someone saw our family picture at a former workplace of his and tell him what the person said.
He said I have street cred.
Wow.
I don't really think this person can give out street cred, but he still said it.
Right.
Really?
Well, see, along those lines, like I've kind of experienced that too, where I've had, where I've seen where certain treatment from people, and then, like they would see pictures of my daughters and like the whole demeanor changes.
Yep.
And then I've gotten, oh, well, you don't look like you would date black men. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because I don't have finger waves in my hair. Like, what does that mean? Like you said, because I haven't adopted a black culture, whatever that means, but yeah, I've gotten that too. Like, well, you don't look like you would do that.
And those, I don't understand the thought process of somebody who's raised with that kind of, thought, because honestly, we're all humans, and we all have, particular things that attract us to each other. Some people, it's sense of humor, intelligence, height, whatever, things that are deeper than your skin tone. So
Yeah, but like you said, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go for it.
But like you said, Debbie, I mean, and we said it earlier, it's because the idea of us just loving each other be regardless, Matt started off, it just became okay 50-something years ago. Yeah. So for this country, that's not it. For so long, it was not okay. For so long, it was not okay for you to love somebody or even openly profess that that's what you liked at all. And now you're dealing with, I mean, what, less than less than a generation and a half of people that are now going to have to change their mentality on how this works, on how that love initially has always been okay to love whoever you wanted to love, regardless of what color they were. But people still see color. That's the basis of it all. That's why we're here.
And you should, because I mean, I'm Black and Jamaican. I want you to see me, but I want you to embrace me, not be repulsed or think less of me. But I mean, I want you to see me for everything I have to offer, including my Caribbean vibes.
Yeah.
And, so you want to see Mike for what he has to offer. I mean, I've learned so much about Polish culture, Polish food. My mother-in-law is an amazing cook and baker. My daughter is going to get my rum cake recipe and her grandmother's apple pie recipe. But, that's all, the benefit of having multicultural relationships. You're able to share the best of your cultures with your little humans, but then also letting them know that other people's cultures are just as valid. There's no reason for you to denigrate someone based on, you being different.
I appreciate that. Let me ask you guys a question to think about from a challenges standpoint. When you guys have had challenging, or I'm asking, have you guys had challenging conversations between each other, right? So for me, I'm just married to a Black woman, so I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm just saying, it's kind of easy. Like we both kind of get angry about the same things or whatever. We kind of look at things maybe a little bit different from a racial standpoint. But there's this meme that I saw. It was a while ago, maybe a couple years ago. It was after one of the killings, and it was a Black woman and a white husband, and the husband was asleep. He was just gone, exhausted, and the Black woman is in the bed and she has her phone up, and it said like BLM, I think it was like Black Lives Matter, and it had like an article or something on the phone, and you could see the phone, but then she's looking at her husband and not because she dislikes her husband, but I'm assuming how do you guys handle that? Does that make sense? What I'm trying to
it totally does.
Okay,
yes.
cool.
Yes.
I will say for me, I have a friend. She's local to Charlotte, and she has a nonprofit that deals with anti-racism education, and she has a class going on now that Mike's taking, which I think is awesome. I mean, we've both been huge supporters of her work for years, and for him as a white male who's basically the picture of the default in the US, he's going through this class to learn about, unlearn and learn about some of the ugly truths and the ugly narratives that have brought us here. So, while I will have visceral reactions to Black violence and, police brutality and all of that, he's working on his end to educate himself. And, for me, it's like a different emotion because I have to literally distance myself from the news and stuff because after a while it's like PTSD. But for him, it's more of we have children, we want their future to be better. So he's doing his part to learn and unlearn and check his biases.
What do you guys think, Foster?
Well,
just how you guys dealt with these issues.
What between ourselves?
Between us?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Karen and I consistently, I would say, all the time, have conversations about. It's not just about Black and white. It's definitely about cultural differences and how we were raised and different nuances of different things of what goes on in our families and we definitely recognize, like just some of the stuff that we've just talked about, like about how history is skewed and how it's written and not just even just the Black and white thing, but being aware of how society has jaded the image of what's supposed to be. And you touched on it, Debbie, like we are trying to make sure that our children, because I don't know why we don't give our children the full Monty of everything that's going on so that they can be better. Like, I don't know why it has to be. It's understood that America was built on segregation and it's built on racism, and we know that. I mean, it's just known. And to try to cover it up and to try to make it something so little that so many people died and all that kind of good stuff, and so many people have fought for equality, not even anything better than that, but just to be equal. They have to know that so that they can be better. Like our whole generation the next generation needs to know that. Like we were talking about, it's been blown up about Floyd, but it's a whole generation of children, and we're getting better by them knowing how this works. The truth. Oh, well, I'm saying how it affects us is that it's our children. Like that's how it's affecting us, is that we are raising the next generation, and you're telling them from your side, being a single mom, white, and me being a single parent, black, and now that we're together as a family, just like with them, that they need to know the full spectrum of how this works. That there's going to be people out there that just don't like them just because of the color of their skin, and they need to be ready for it.
So you guys did.
I have a question for Karen. Because I've been seeing this. I won't say as an outsider, because like I said, I've been here for more than 2/3 of my life. But back from Rodney King, Amadou Diallo, the violence against Black males' bodies has been pervasive over the last. I don't know. I can keep counting back to Emmett Till. But do you ever fear for Spencer? For the little things that happen, going for a jog, just walking, sleeping, somebody accidentally coming into the wrong apartment. I mean, you can just kind of name what's been going on. Do you ever have any fears?
Yeah, definitely. And then when it's in your face so much like it is now in the media, and, I recently, a couple months ago or a month ago, when all this when George Floyd happened, I think I posted something, and I had someone who commented and was like, you don't really have a perspective to have an opinion on this. And I'm like, wait, I'm married to a Black man. This was a Black male who said it, which I get, when I kind of calmed down my anger at the comment, I get where he was coming from, but it was also no, I have the same feeling, as a Black woman when my Black husband leaves the house. Is he going to be seen as just another Black guy? Is he going to come home to us? Is he, I'm always like, please put your seatbelt on, please slow down, please don't, like whatever you can do to not draw attention to yourself. Like we've had those conversations. I know he gets tired of hearing it, but I'm like, it's because I'm like, no, I don't even want to have to deal with that.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's very real.
I mean, it's huge, and it's so pervasive, and just, again, for me, I've become more loud than I've been in the past, because I feel like if I was going to leave any kind of legacy for my children, it would be that I use my voice to make a difference.
Right.
And I've given them access to education, volunteer for my child's PTA, because I really am passionate about equal access to proper education, having technology, bridging that divide. There's just so much nuance to the differences in what people of my skin tone on the whole, because again, we're not a monolith. There's people from upper wealthy class all the way down to working class and under the poverty line. And that's another thing, people just come up with one singular Black story. There's not, just like there are many different white stories. I mean, we are all different people. However, there's definitely a skew in terms of access and denial of access. And I really hope for my kids' sake that when they're in, when they get to be my age, that this will be something that they'll say, gosh, my parents really fought through this, and we're so fortunate not to have to keep fighting through this.
So is that almost to kind of almost flip the question back to the Adam family, but then point it to Mike, right? How you asked Karen that question about her husband. Mike, for you, how do you feel about that with your kids? Like, are you worried about their safety when they get older?
I do.
Does it cross your mind?
Yeah, it does, but I have to add a little bit of additional to it. My son identifies much closer to the white side, like a white side, and he's much lighter. So it's hard to remember sometimes that somebody might go so it's not as prominent. With my daughter, she is definitely a darker skin, and I've been slapped with it enough times that I do think about it. But not. It's funny we're talking about. It's like occasionally I might think about it as like, wow, what if somebody did? But it's not as common in me because he's so lighter skinned that it's not always.
So
I will interject that my son has skin tone privilege. It's not that he identifies to the whiter side. He has skin tone privilege, meaning he could walk into a space and be thought of it ambiguously, if that's even a term,
Yeah.
because you
Right.
can't, without me standing beside him, he has my entire facial structure, so we look like twins. But if I wasn't there, you wouldn't automatically assume he has a black mother, but he does, and he knows it. He just knows, and we've talked to him about his skin tone privilege, because he has friends of darker skin tones, and he's at that age now, 13, where at some point they're going to go out together, and we're like, watch out for your friends.
It's interesting because that was, and I'm saying this carefully because I did a conversation on white privilege a couple weeks ago. I think not for the term, because I always feel like the terminology can be thrown out there just to be thrown out there, but part of what some people would say that's not a privilege, it actually kind of is an advantage / privilege to not have to think about it. And I think that's I think what a lot of people are trying to say when they try to say white privilege, not because you've been given something, but there's something that you just don't have to carry, because sometimes the privilege is not to carry the weight.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it it's totally real. I don't know why anybody would think it's not. I mean, I can remember driving cross country with a friend of mine, and I don't remember what state we were about to cross, but we were talking to some locals about how we've heard it's really bad to cross, and the guy just looked at me and said, "Why are you worried? You're white. Like, you don't have anything to be concerned about." So it's just like, it's always been there. I mean, we've talked about it for interviews. She joked, it's been a joke that I can like fall over and get a new job and she'll have to interview 30 times. Like it's not her. She's much smarter than I am. I would hire her over me every single time. For some reason,
I find it interesting that with the kids, and I don't know if this happens to you guys, Foster, because I'm trying to, I'm visualizing your kids, Karen, but I kind of know what they look like. But actually, I do know what they look like. But it's amazing that with the kids, you just literally have two different worries when it comes to the racial aspect of it. Like, it doesn't cross your mind for your son, like, by himself, like just walking outside. He just, that's amazing. For the Foster family, is that, how's that been for you guys with your kids? And you have 4 girls, so.
Right. So I would say our fear, our worry recently, because our children are 21, 20, 14 and 13. And for the 14 and 13-year-old that's growing up, we have recognized some of these problems. And one of them would be like you were saying, that they could be ambiguous in some place and start wanting to date little dudes. And for one little guy who could look up and say, "Oh, I didn't know that you were black and I can't date you," I don't know how that might crush them. And I've already started preparing them for that. I mean, that's a crazy type of scenario. And I had to sit down and have that with them, because I know that it can happen. I've seen it happen. So for both of them.
Oh, wait a minute. Y'all said your son is 13?
He's 13. Yeah.
He's 13.
Oh, okay. We'll go make a note of that.
Yeah.
We have to pause our video for one quick second, because I need to charge my computer. Can you give us 1 second? I'm so sorry about that.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and do that.
Well, while they're charging, so that would be one of, I've had to sit down and talk to them and let them understand that it's going to be hurtful, but you'd rather know where they are and what's going on with them, or what's going on with the significant other. And that's, I mean, like you just, and I keep going back because it is so crazy that it's only 50 years and that you're going to have to give people an opportunity to come along with what's just okay, that it should be okay. And that if this person can't get past that or stand up for you, then it's just not the person for you. But for 14 and 13-year-old little girl who's about to have her heart crushed in that scenario, based on like you said, Hershey syrup in her melanin, that's crazy. That's like, it's just crazy that I have to have that conversation with my little girls.
Yeah.
I will add, not so much a suggestion, but for us, we're super intentional about where we send our kids to school, the friends that they hang out with.
Yes,
in fact, prior to coronavirus, for the past 2 years, we've had basically the mini UN of tweens and teens invade our house for one Friday night a month for games. And 0 social media. They have to put their tech in a basket, and it's like game night. And we have, I don't think there's one ethnicity that's left out. I mean, we had so many different kids, private school, public school, homeschool. I mean, just so many different walks of life. And for me, I think it's totally good to prepare your child for the eventuality that they could get their heart broken, but it's also really good to empower your child with a good sense of self. They
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah, like they're worthy of the love of whomever.
Oh yeah.
However, if they don't see those characteristics in that person, then you're right, it's not the right fit. And
Right.
there's 7 billion people in this world.
Right.
Well, that's
Right.
what we said. If there's someone who wouldn't date you because of that, like, that's their issue.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not your issue.
Exactly.
Like,
It's like, I'm so sorry for you with those views, but that is not
Yeah.
my jam.
Yeah.
Next.
But like you said, it's preparing them for it is what I'm saying. Like as
Yeah.
children, and you know that your children are, and this next generation of children, they don't see it quite as much as we have seen it.
Right.
Not really, but you're still going to have racism and you're still going to have bigotry out there. So
Right.
it's preparing them for it. Like what Karen said about how she asked me to put on my seatbelt and she asked me if I'm okay in the call. And when I was by myself, I didn't understand that because I was alone. But now I have to recognize with my wife that that's a worry, that she is worried about where I am. And when I'm 5 minutes late, that I could be, under like that. And so I have to tell my children for the hardships that could come for them. Not that it will, and God willing it doesn't. But
Yeah.
if it does, that you need to know your heart needs to be protected and you're beautiful enough. Like you said, I tell them that all the time. They're beautiful enough and you are enough. You don't have to be upset about that.
I have a question for you, Spencer.
Yes.
Did you, growing up, did your parents give you the talk? Like if you ever got pulled over or profiled by a cop? Because I would think that as a Black man in this country, so many of my friends in college, and I mean, what's crazy to me is that when I was in college, I had these friends who were, gosh, super smart, going on to work at, the Space Center and stuff like that. And on the college campus, they felt completely in their element. But as soon as they went outside, there was always that guarded, am I going to be profiled?
Oh yes. I've to kind of sideways into that. So yes, I've been given the talk, and I've been a product of a situation with police officers that was strictly and stupidly crazy because of my color. I had a friend, his name was Sean, and he was my manager, and he and I used to hang out all the time. And one day after work,
he was white.
Yeah, he's a white guy. He drove a BMW. We were riding home from work one day. A cop pulls us over, and the cop comes to my side of the window and puts his head in and says, "I can smell it. Where is it?" So I said, "Excuse me?" And he pulls me out of the car and searches me and tells me he needs to know where it is. Wow. Then he takes me and handcuffs me and puts me in the back seat of a car. Then he cracks the window. He goes over to my friend Sean's BMW to his window and asks him where it is. My friend Sean says that he's got weed in the car, tells him where it is. He takes my friend out of the car, lets him stand outside by the cop car, comes back to the car to me and says, "I know that you've got some weed on you. Get out of the car." So he takes me out of the cop car again, searches me again, and puts me back in. Ultimately winds up taking us both down to jail, where Sean got a PR bond where he was signed out, and I had a $500 secured bond where I had to pay to get out as a passenger in his car of weed that he said that he wanted.
So what's interesting about that story, and I'm glad you brought that up, Debbie, about just like the talk, and then, with Spencer going into that story, is that a lot of this drives the parenting, right? These are experiences that people have when it comes to the parenting. And as we get closer to the end here, one of the things I want to ask you all, I didn't plan to ask this, but now I think I should. If you guys can spend a minute each, and I say a minute each, meaning each one of you, if possible, because you have different perspectives, possibly, is what advice would you give people who are thinking about other races, and it doesn't have to be Black or white, just being from a relational standpoint, currently married with young kids or about to have kids, or people who are just like you all, right? Kind of you've had children for a minimum of 8 years now, all the way up to 21. What advice would you guys give if you guys could spend a minute each?
I can start. So for both of my kids, I've done my best to remove them from a lot of the the magazines, the media, the things that kind of give you a false sense of reality and what's perfect and beautiful, and really try to instill in them, the values of character and being a good friend and all of that. And hopefully they'll be able to take it into whatever relationships. But for me, it's just important to combat the ugly rhetoric with truth, fill them up with truth, and because they'll be overflowing, they can share it with the next person. But then also giving them a healthy dose of boundaries. You set your boundaries, and if somebody pushes too far in your boundaries, you have the right to reset your boundaries. And so relationship wise and friendship wise, especially my daughter, she's at the age of mean girls. And, we have gone back to journaling and talking about what makes
That's
a good
hard.
friend. So,
That's hard.
yeah.
I appreciate that. Actually, I'll go to another lady. Ladies first. Karen.
I think the main thing is identity, and them recognizing who they are. For us as a Christian household, for us, that's the baseline: is who does God say you are, not what does the world say you are, what does anyone else, how does anyone else define you. It's about them knowing who they are in Christ and being firm and solid in that. It's about understanding that that not everyone's not going to agree with you. Everyone is not going to be your friend.
Yes.
Like you said, the mean girl age and teenage girls. It's we've had a lot of those conversations of just people being mean or just being just ignorance, and just explaining like, look, you have to get along with everybody, but you don't have to like everybody, and everybody's not going to like you. But you still have to be compassionate, and you still have to be considerate of other people, whether you agree with them or not. And that it's not based on race, like that people are people. And that's what we try to, I think, instill in them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Spencer, anything you
My wife just said it so awesomely. I would definitely say, because we are a Christian household, that it's about identity of who Christ says he is. I have to say that, like, that's what it is. And that passing it on for anybody coming along, that you would have to recognize who you are, like, out here in this world, regardless of what your color is, what your what's inside of you will translate to what's out there to other people. You're always going to come across people that are going to define you by color or whatever, by whatever bigotry there is out there. But you're going to have to learn what you are and who you are, and be strong enough to tell people that that's what this is, and that you're worthy of love, and that you're worthy to be loved, and that you're bigger than this hate. Like, that's just what it is. And that's where we are. Like, let's love over this hate. Like, because hate's always going to show up. It's always going to show up, and it's always going to rear its head. But as long as we know who we are and we stand together in love, then we'll be okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, and real quick, something that we do say to them a lot, like when they're kind of having a moment of, well, I just feel like I'm ugly, or I feel, it's like negative talk, we ask them, who told you that?
Yeah.
Whose voice said that? Like, that's something that we ask them, like, who told you that?
I love the aggressiveness that you all are carrying when it comes, and I mean that positively, you all are carrying when it comes to your kids and your relationship together to work these things out. I mean, it's awesome. Mike, what you got?
Well, everybody talked about kids, so I'll just say relationships in general. I think two pieces of advice that I take pretty much everywhere with me is, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to say something wrong, but instead of running away, apologize, lean into it, and learn how to do it better and learn something from the situation. And we focus a lot on skin color today, and I think might have not missed, but like, look at how similar everybody is. There's a lot more in common between everybody than there is differences.
And I was actually going to touch that in a second, but yeah, keep going.
No, I just to add, is like, we were talking about getting ready for this the other night, and it's like, to be honest, our upbringing, you can see our color differences, sure, but our upbringings are pretty darn similar. And we were comparing note by note how much similarities we have and how we were brought up and our values and the things that we care about. So I think it's just important to remember that skin color is only skin deep.
Yeah. Right. And I think it's, and I think it's very important. It's why I wanted to start when it comes to you guys as individuals, you're starting, from a description of who you guys were as individuals. Sorry. it's important that we all realize that everybody is a human being who
Yes.
has different perspectives and different backgrounds, and the similarities that we may have or find about each other, like you just said, Mike, about you and Debbie, you guys have a lot of similarities. Your skin color doesn't necessarily remove those similarities. And I think that's super important, to not be so focused on that and be focused on the culture, the perspective and the perceptions that people bring to relationships, so you can get past that. And it sounds like that's what you all have done to help further your marriages going forward. If I said that correctly, no matter what's going on. I'm sorry, Spencer, did I cut you off, or no? You're fine.
No. I was saying yes.
Cool. Well, I don't think there's anything else really here. I know that there were some comments, but we actually kind of wove in a lot of the comments and questions into the conversations. You guys answered a lot, especially around the kids, marriages, so on and so forth. Oh, I do have a question, Mike. Did you touch your hair when you guys first started getting together?
So when we, there was a movie that came out. That's when I found out I wasn't supposed to. Like there was something about you're not supposed to do that. But I don't think there was ever a point in time. There was a moment with that. So
awesome.
Matter of fact, she went natural 3 or 4 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we had a lot of talks about the differences. So I learned a lot through that process. So.
Awesome. Well, look, guys, thank y'all so much for your time. Thank you, everybody who watched on Facebook. We are going to end the live right now. The Karen and Spencer Foster, Debbie and Mike Adam, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
your guys' time, and thank you all on Facebook World for watching.
Yes.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.